Today, for the very first time, we are going to be listening to Poppy's brand new album, Zig.
Zig.
Do you think it's a reference to Ziggy Stardust, maybe?
I hope not.
I like your idea better. What was your idea?
Hopefully there's a Zag in 6 months.
Zig and Zag. Now she
Zig
does
and Zag.
stuff like that, right? Like
She does.
She'll release like a different version of an album or something later. So hopefully we get. But this is a full album, 11 songs.
It is 11 songs. It just comes in over 30 minutes by 30 seconds. It looks like.
Oh yeah, oh boy, I'm looking at the lengths of the songs here.
Yep, I did look at that earlier. I was like, okay, good. We got 11 tracks. What are we looking at for lengths? Oh.
Yeah, but that's all right. That's what her last album, full album, Flux was.
Yeah.
Flux was very short. Okay, so anyway, we're into the video. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on my channel. First off, I have to say, if this is your first video on the channel, don't freak out too much. I'm not a super awesome, cool hippie dude with long hair that normally wears cool clothing. All right, this is a wig. Normally, my hair looks really terrible. Not that this looks great, but it looks way better. I've always, my whole entire life, wanted long hair. Always. And secretly, I've always wanted dreadlocks. I think dreadlocks are the coolest style of hair. And I think sometimes dreadlocks and sometimes what I actually mean are like the really tight braids all over the whole head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
a cornrows kind of thing?
I've had cornrows. I went to senior homecoming with cornrows in my hair. Yes.
Beautiful.
That I did. But anyway, so if this is your first video on my channel, this is part of my Halloween costume. I've been working on our special Halloween video, which by the time this video is out will already be out. So please just stop this video and go check that out. The amount of work I've put into it is asinine and very stupid for probably how good it's going to end up being to everybody else. I've watched it like multiple times now and think it's great.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
all you can do is make stuff that you would like, and there are enough people in the world that other people will also like it.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, the reason there was so much more, we do reactions here on my channel. Again, this is for people if you're new here. We'll talk about Poppy in just a second, but normally we do full album reactions here on my channel. If I'm lucky enough to have a guest, what we'll do is we'll listen to a song and then we'll basically talk about it. And usually we'll talk about it from more of like an audio engineering aspect, from the production side, how things were recorded, why things sound the way they sound, whether we think it sounds good or not. So be prepared for us to probably talk about the music at least, well, probably mostly in that vein. But anyway, this special Halloween video that we did, I did completely different new things. I made basically three separate things for the video that I've never done before. I did like a skit that required an actual script and required me to memorize lines and then to actually perform and say them, which was very hard and took like probably 7 hours. We did 7 hours straight filming to get that done.
Wow.
And then it took me a very long time to edit, but I think it worked out all right. And I also did a really cool, I love Halloween a lot, and I've always tried to do like special Halloween stuff. Whether it's on the Harry Potter podcasts that I edit or on any project that I'm working on, I always try to go above and beyond to try to do things, make things a little creepy or whatever in any way that I can. And so at the start of the video, I filmed and edited this sort of like vignette kind of like horror sort of stuff. I made it all black and white, so it's kind of artsy fartsy, and filmed a little bit of footage of myself in my Halloween costume, which my Halloween costume, for those who don't know, is Bray Wyatt. Which even though I know I look probably more like Charles Manson, but that's okay. It's kind of the same vibe, honestly, if you know anything about Bray Wyatt's character. At least
honestly, it's almost more of a young Dave Grohl.
Oh, Dave Grohl. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
and I know when I have my chin down like this, I almost kind of look like a little bit like Hagrid almost, because you're like, how long is his facial hair?
Yeah.
But then when I lift my chin up, you're like, oh, he has short facial hair. So
PS1 Hagrid.
Anyway, so I did that, and then there's actually there's a lot. Actually, I could count them, probably like 10 or so special Metallica Easter eggs spread out throughout the videos.
That's cool.
Special things for our Metallica fans. So if you're watching this because you're curious about who Poppy is, and you haven't seen our Halloween video yet, go watch that. We actually did some music. My other Chris Schoenberg did some banjo he learned the song One on the banjo, or at least the intro. We did some different things. I know I'm kind of spoiling some stuff for you, Chris, because you haven't seen it.
I'm learning a lot.
What did you just say? It got all...
I said I'm learning a lot.
Yeah. But I just want people to know because it was something I've worked a lot.
I don't mind. I don't consider it a spoiler.
Hard.
I'm really looking forward to watching it.
I'm very excited for you guys to see it. So anyway, that's something that's on my channel here. Please go check that out. So for what this video is, we're not going to BS around a lot like we normally do in our videos.
We'll see.
We'll see. It depends what we decide to talk about between the songs, because for our Halloween video, let me tell you, this is probably not the time to talk about this, Chris. We should do this off camera. We need to have like a meeting or something. But I feel like we've kind of lost track of what the point of what we're supposed to be doing is when we're doing these reactions. Lulu, I think, kind of screwed us up because we just kind of like felt free to talk about whatever we wanted because it was so bad. That I think we kind of carried that over to Rob Zombie a little bit, but also a lot of it was Chris Schoenberg not really caring about the music as much.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think it comes more from just not having a lot to say about what's happening.
Yeah, but I don't know. For me, like when I do a reaction by myself, when you listen to me doing a reaction, most of what I'm saying is like, oh, it's really interesting that like there's a snare drum, there's a this, there's a this, and I'm more reactionary in the moment. And I think the main reason for that is I tend to not stop between the songs. And I feel like that works better for me and it makes the video way shorter. But when we have a guest, it's harder for us to communicate things like that in real time because one, we're not super synced up exactly right. There's always like 2 or 3 seconds off.
Sure.
And then also just like it's hard for us to hear each other. It gets kind of distracting because I would have to listen to you talking rather than when I'm talking just myself. I can listen to a couple anyway. Anyway, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, sorry, this is a whole long, we don't need to do this. So for people who are unaware, Poppy is this amazing singer. We have talked about her a lot here on my channel. If you want to listen to us talk, me and Chris, specifically Chris, that I'm here with, if you want to hear us talk more about her, you can go listen to, it was 2 years ago, right, that she released Flux? I think it was 2020, or was it 2021?
I think I Disappear. I Disagree
was 2020.
I Disagree. Yes, it was 2021. Or 2020?
Well, yeah, because I think it originally came out, and I Disagree came out in 2020, and then early 2021 was I Disagree More.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Let me look her up on Discogs. Sorry.
I want to say Flux was last year.
It was not last year.
No? Okay.
No, for sure. It was at least the year earlier, if not the year before.
No, you're right. Last year was so crammed full of music. We wouldn't.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think Poppy would have made it onto our lists if we. Okay. And it didn't make it onto my list that year. Okay. So her debut, we'll just go through her list here. Oh, that's right. The Discogs app is broken at the moment. You can't search. You can't search for discographies. Shoot, they got to update that. They do a pretty good job with updating, but okay, Poppy, Flux. Sorry, everybody.
I Disagree was my favorite album of 2020. And
Flux 2021.
2 years ago?
That's what it says. Let's check I Disagree.
No way.
Wow.
Ew. Ew. I'm sad.
I Disagree was released 2020. So Flux was the following year. So this we've had now 2 years.
So last year we had nothing, right? Because it is still only 2023.
She did release some music last year, I think, but I think it was either just an EP or some different weird thing like her music.
Yeah, there was something. That makes sense.
People sometimes get mad at us here for like not doing our bunch of research beforehand and stuff.
Yeah.
So I will say we already know quite a bit about Poppy, and I feel confident in what we know, so that's fine. Maybe our dates aren't specifically right, but we're pretty good with the music that she's released so far because we like it very much. And then also, like, the point to me of the reactions is kind of to know as little as possible to get the most genuine reaction in every aspect from us. You know, if I didn't want to read the Wikipedia for this article because I didn't want to read something like, oh, this album was produced by Dan Auerbach and has Dan playing the guitar on every song. Like, that would tell me something about the album that would, in my opinion, spoil a really cool moment that I want to learn when I'm hearing it for the first time. So, So that's one of the reasons we don't do a ton of, every now and then I'll get comments on some of our videos and they're like, if you should have done more research beforehand. And so just want to get that out there.
There was a single of hers that we reacted to a while back
Earlier
that we found
this
out
year.
later
It was Church Outfit. It's the first song on this album.
But one of them, we did two, because one of them was a cover, wasn't it?
We never, you're right, we did. It was the song we didn't know was a cover.
Right.
So we did Church Outfit, and then we did the song that was originally a Kitty song, which is not on here. I don't
Right.
think.
It's not on this album? Okay. Because I was looking to see if I recognize any of these, because I've heard Church Outfit, but otherwise, nothing.
Yeah, I don't
And if I have, I've forgotten.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that song we reacted to is not on here. Neither of us at the time of that. See, that's a good example of when we should have done more research.
Yeah, I was thinking about that yesterday or today at some point. I was thinking about the fact that we reacted to a cover without knowing it was a cover.
And we didn't know it was a cover, so that was kind of a bummer. But I don't think there's any covers on this album. But we have already heard track 1, Church Outfit, but I'm still excited to listen to it again.
Oh yeah.
I remember enjoying it, but being a little disappointed by its length, and also I can't remember exactly what it was doing, but I don't think that it was I don't really remember there being like a chorus or anything specific. And I also remember
I think she moved back into heavier stuff with it, and it was sort of a.
Oh, I remember it being more electronic.
Right. Well, I mean, heavy electronic.
Sure.
I think those things can go hand in hand for sure. But.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, the difference when you say heavy, it's interesting because I Disagree was a metal album, whereas I Do Not. Flux was not a metal album.
No, it wasn't.
Flux was very unique, and I thought at the time a really cool idea and a risk for her to take, having an album that sounded that way. Mm-hmm. And I really liked what she was doing, but it was very short. A lot of the songs didn't connect with me very much, not like they did on I Disagree, at least.
Mm-hmm. I didn't care much for Flux. I listened to it a couple of times, but it just didn't hook me at all. And I Disagree is by far, like, having basically forgotten that Flux exists, this is the first new Poppy album since I Disagree, as far as I'm concerned.
See, I really like Flux.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think I would definitely say I like I Disagree more.
Same.
But I don't want to discredit Flux, because I do think.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that it's a bad album.
Yeah.
You brought up a lot of points that made me really wonder why I could not like it, because it's so similar to a bunch of stuff I do like. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just because I was so excited about how I Disagree was a new direction for her that I was looking for more of that.
And it was so shocking at the time too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved that, yeah. And I think I was looking for more of it. Super didn't get it, and didn't give it enough time to sort of make its own space in my mind as a different thing on its own.
Yeah. Well, a guy probably needs to just listen to it more,
Yeah.
I think I did a reaction to that on my channel, and it was just by myself. So if you want to check that out, you can go look at that reaction. I know I reacted to Poppy, to Flux. We weren't doing this stuff back when I Disagree came out. I hadn't even started my reaction channel yet. But I was going to say, we did talk about her and the album Flux quite a bit the year that it came out, then 2021, in our top 12 albums of the year video. So you can go check that out. I believe that I think she was on your list that year with Flux, but it was pretty high up.
Yeah, high, in the
up,
12, 10, 11.
Yeah,
somewhere.
And also that year was kind of a mediocre year for me. I think both of our lists that year were not as good. Whereas last year, I think, might have been the best year of music I've ever experienced. It was phenomenal.
It was one of the biggest deals. Since we started doing this, as far as I know,
which will be 10 years next year.
Yeah, when I don't recall ever having 40 albums to choose from.
Yeah,
except for last year.
Yeah, last year was just phenomenal. I think my top 6 from last year are probably better than anything I had in the 3 previous years before that. Any number. They were all just phenomenal. So anyway, if you want to hear us talk more about Poppy, you can go check out those videos. We're not going to discuss her too much right now. I kind of just want to get right into the music.
Yeah.
Before we do that, sure. I brought my beverage down here. So, of course, today, with my Halloween costume on, I've got to drink a Mountain Dew Voodoo, the mystery flavor, which is a mystery no longer, Chris. I don't know if you heard, but it has actually been confirmed because it was a deal with the company. It's the cherry flavor of, let me try to think of what the candy's called. It's not candy. It's that thing that kind of looks like a tongue. It's like a hard taffy, not Laffy Taffy. It's about the size of a tongue.
Looks like it. Does it look like a tongue? Is it meant to resemble one?
It's. Oh, I needed that drink. It's cherry. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? Not something to waste our time on. Are you ready with track 1?
I am.
Oh, hold on. I need to think. I think I'm glad I remembered. I need to change my headphones. So hold on one second
yes.
while I do this. Are you laughing at me?
Yeah,
Hold on, I don't have my... Were you laughing at me?
I was.
You probably deserve being laughed at, that's for sure.
Well, as people with long hair just put headphones on over long hair, you know?
Yeah, but I don't want to get this crap inside my headphones. These are my brand new old headphones.
I know. I don't know.
I
It's
know.
just like, this is proof that somebody's wearing a wig.
Yeah.
It just was funny to watch where you're like,
Yeah, Chris Schoenberg just like flicks his head forward, flicks it back, puts the headphones on, boom, done. And I'm all like, gotta put it back, gotta put it back. The easiest thing is I could have just taken the dumb wig off.
True.
But hey,
why would you do
look
that?
how
You don't
cool
want
I
to
look now.
shatter the illusion.
Am I kind of
exactly.
breaking into like Jack Black territory yet? If I got the big gut.
Good question.
No, I'm like
You just couldn't look less like him, honestly.
Jack Black? Okay, that's good.
Yeah, the rest of you.
That's fine. We had a friend who thought I looked like Jack Black a lot. Graham used to tell me I looked like Jack Black.
Of course he did.
And all the other like very famous fat people from TV shows and stuff.
Right. It was never somebody interesting.
No,
It was,
or
which
flattering.
I guess is not nice of
Dave
me
Grohl,
to
though,
say about them.
I'll take
but
that.
like Dave Grohl, like that's
I'll
not,
take Dave Grohl. Okay, track 1, church outfit. I'm going to turn the music down just a smidge in case. All right, in 3, 2, 1. All right, can you still hear me while we're listening?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, if this is setting a precedent for how this album sounds, I'm very excited about it.
It's so funny because later we're going to be listening to In This Moment, and I could see them doing this exact thing.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Super distorted vocals, electronic drum beat.
That synth was shot straight, like was out here
Complete
and then
mono.
it just came right in.
I'm guessing before it was 2 synths actually, and one of them just went away.
Sure. I think you're right, because that's back now and it's further out.
I think it's just a different synth. It's a very 90s sounding synth actually, but it's being used in an interesting way. I keep wanting to turn it up. I feel like it's missing some high frequencies.
Interesting.
I know I say that about everything nowadays, but
I wonder if it might be you.
I don't think so. I just got
No,
new
you're right.
headphones with good frequency range, so.
Love
Ooh,
that scream.
That cymbal is interesting.
Yeah. It's almost just like a white noise burst.
Yeah. Okay, is that it?
Done.
Oh,
Yep, well. Neat.
okay, now I wanted to stop it because I don't want to hear any part of the next song till we're ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was Church Outfit. To me, not a full song, now that I've heard it again.
Agree. Definitely more of an intro track, but everything about it sounds great.
Right. I do think that it could have sounded maybe a little bit more high fidelity.
The thing I was going to say about that is, like, as you get older, your highs drop out.
Oh, for
That's
sure.
what you lose in hearing. And so that's like half joking about, like, maybe it's you.
Maybe it's not me. No, for
But-
sure. Well, I would think that if everything I listened to, I thought that about, but it's not
Right. And
everything.
I feel like you wouldn't get into a position where you just suddenly started noticing it, where you're like, where's all the highs suddenly? Like, it's such a precipitous fall over such a long period of time.
Yeah.
So, and of course, you go listen to something that sounds great, and you're like, see, this is fine. So.
Yeah, and I will also say, too, I have the added benefit of not enjoying live music at all. So my hearing loss that I do have is probably, I would say, significantly less than it could be if I was the type of person that went and saw live shows. I remember when I went and saw Lou Vietti live, and I was standing directly in the path of the speaker. And when I go to like live stuff and things, and I'm like standing in a crowd, I just kind of like freeze up. Like I don't move at all. And so I was looking at the speaker the whole time, angry at it, that it was like so loud up to me. And I never moved, like an idiot. I never moved. And so that was on me. And I remember for like almost a week after that, my right ear was ringing quite badly. But
I had something similar happen at a Copeland show once. I was right next to the speaker, and it was just ripping my brain out of my head.
That Lou Vietti show was one of the most disappointing things that's ever happened to me, because I had tickets to go see Epica and Lou Vietti, and Epica had to cancel at the last second. So I was going to see at Sokol Auditorium one of the most important Dutch bands of all time, if not the most important Dutch band of all time, but the second probably most important symphonic metal band of all time. I was going to see them in Omaha at Sokol, and they had to cancel. And so I did get to see a whole bonus acoustic set from a Lou Vietti, which is really cool because they play like 150-year-old instruments that are all like, there was multiple hurdy-gurdies. I'll just say it like that.
I love a hurdy-gurdy.
I know, I hate the hurdy-gurdy, but...
I love it.
I know you do. But anyway, it was a nice experience. But
I asked a couple of my friends the other day, are there any instruments that you guys hate, flat out? And there was a couple of answers for...
I'm really curious.
Things played in a certain way, but just the instrument itself, no. Which is where I'm at, too. Because one of my friends was like smooth... Like a saxophone played in a smooth jazz Kenny G kind of way is miserable. But saxophone in general, no.
Is that why you asked him? Because you were thinking of my saxophone thing?
Yes.
Yeah, because there are some good saxophone things when the saxophone is playing just like like, who can it be now? Do 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 do, right? Like, but that's not like a saxophone part. You could play that on any instrument. It just happens that they played it on the saxophone. And it sounds the way it does because it was a saxophone, but that's just a small, like almost like more of a sample than anything else. But yeah, I just hate the sound of a saxophone, totally. But I don't think we're going to get any of that here with Poppy. But let's find out. Let's listen. I was
going to say, I can't put that at a zero chance. It's Poppy.
Let's listen to track 2, Knockoff. Are you ready?
I am.
All right, in 3, 2, 1. Okay, same kind of thing.
Incredibly similar start. Presumably led into straight from track 1.
Interesting how they kind of cut off that phrase there.
Vocals hard center, right in your face.
All right, so we're getting just a straight up poppy album, it seems.
But it's dark.
Ooh,
I think I have heard this.
You have heard this?
This is good.
Okay.
I think so.
Maybe this was like another single she released then.
Yeah.
You know, it would be awesome if she released Zig here, and then Zag was these same songs, but full-on metal.
Oh, that would be awesome.
And I love the fact that she calls it Zig, too, because it is a zigzag from what she's been doing. I'm sure people were expecting a metal album.
It's just very lightsy. I love that crunchy bass synth. It's so good.
That noise that happens, that is I have a patch just like that on my thing. That is a sonar sound.
It's almost like I was going to say, it's a sonar blip.
It's a sonar. I have a sonar patch on one of my digital instrument things.
I'm going to keep that in mind for stuff. The vocals are just so present. I love it.
I will say, as far as the song goes, I do not care for this at all.
Interesting.
I am bummed. I like the sounds that I'm hearing, but
I have no problem with this. I like this. And that crunchy synth in this chorus is everything.
yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. Great little progression. All that stuttering and cut off. I love it. Awesome. That gets a 7.5 from me in our first ever use of numbers for rating.
I am disappointed. It's pretty generic pop music.
That's true.
Her vocals are just so. You know, we when we were listening to Flux, I compared her for the first time to Lights, and here that is Lights all over the place. However,
Yes,
I feel like this is Lights like circa her first album. You know, not
yeah.
Lights wouldn't make a song like this now. It would be much more. Whatever, it doesn't matter. They're different artists.
Right, I was going to say, is this even worth comparing?
Right, they're different
in this
artists.
regard?
But I guess to me, it just kind of seems a little bit amateur-y in terms of like what's happening.
It's pretty simple.
Like, again, I've said a million times now, I enjoy the synth sounds, but if you just told me, like, hey, Patrick, make a pop song that a female girl is going to sing over with a big synth line in the chorus, I would probably make something that sounds exactly like this. You know what I mean? Like, there was really nothing in there that to me stood out as being special in any sort of like a poppy way. You know what
Sure,
I mean?
I agree with that.
So we'll see. Who knows? I mean, the next song might be whatever. Okay, all right, we're back. I just had to go and fix my headphone mix a little bit. So yeah, like I was saying, I feel a little disappointed with that song. You really liked it though. You gave it a 7.5, which is really good. So should we just listen to the next one and see how we feel?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and do that. This is
But I also agree with you. There wasn't anything novel about it.
okay. And again, not that it needs...
I just liked it as a song. Yeah.
Yeah, not that it needs to be novel, but to me,
Poppy
I
is
don't
kind
know.
of good for that.
Yeah. We'll see. Who knows? This whole album might be a troll for all we know. Poppy could absolutely release a whole album that's just trolling her metal fans or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, all right, this is Hard, track 3, in 3, 2, 1. I like that.
Great sound.
Right off the bat,
Off to a
I
good
like
start.
that.
Oh,
Ooh.
distant drum.
Real drum samples. Kind of trip hoppy almost. Love that.
Clean vocal.
It's kind of hidden in the mix, though.
That side chain's a little.
I was just going to say that. I keep feeling like I need to turn the music up, and we've talked about that before, how that's not a good thing.
No, up is good, down is bad.
Yeah.
Or at least want versus need. The vocals are almost, they feel boxed in.
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely low passed for sure, at pretty low. I love that piano.
Yeah.
And everything else is like...
There's a little bit of Melanie Martinez in this chorus.
It's so distorted, but like they're using the distortion in like a really pretty way.
Nice, love it. How many tracks do you think that is?
2.
At least 2.
Just 2 is all. See, now this sounds like Poppy.
Yeah.
That was the first line that I was like, we have Poppy here. Everything
And this thing, this so hard part, this is very Melanie Martinez.
Okay. Man, I'm not ready for any of these songs to be over.
I know it. I was just thinking, especially with that had kind of a long intro for a 2.5 minute song. And then we got to like the end of the first verse halfway through, and I was like, man, this is going to need to do a lot of stuff in a short amount of time at this point.
Yeah.
And it did, but it could have used another 30 seconds probably.
Yeah. You know what that reminded me of, actually? This is really interesting and totally on topic, because in our special Halloween video that I mentioned earlier, we listened to a Rob Zombie album. Mm-hmm. That song reminded me of something that Rob Zombie has done occasionally, but a lot earlier on in his career, like where you'll listen to his album, right? And you'll hear one song that's like a normal song, right? So you hear like Super Beast, right? And you're like, yeah, mixed like a totally regular song, sounds like it does, really great. And then the next track on the album, it starts, right? And you hear these like lo-fi drums in the background. And you hear like a cave noise or something, like some bats flying around. And then you hear him start singing, and it starts out and he's like singing. It sounds like he's like singing in the back of this cave, right? And then the song keeps going, and then 3 minutes later it's done, and it never changed. Like when you hear a really cool song that starts out with all these weird effects on it, and then you're listening to it, and then you're waiting for it to like, okay, when's all the real production going to come in, right? But Rob Zombie has songs that never do that, right? They're just like this weird thing for 3 minutes. It's a full song, but I don't consider it a real song because it's like, it's so intentionally lo-fied, or there's like a weird effect applied to something that's really so unconventional, it makes it not standard or conventional. And you're waiting for like after the first verse, when the chorus comes in, for like the song to become normal sounding. And it just never does. The whole entire song is like that. That's what this reminded me of. The whole song sounded like it was this weird, distorted, overly compressed thing. And at first I was like, this is really cool, because I'll bet after they're done with this part, the song's going to change and it's going to bloom and it's going to open up and you're going to hear full drums and you're going to hear a bass guitar, something in there, synth bass probably. And that just never happened. It was this like weird, distorted, overly compressed. And when I say overly compressed, I mean the like weird bass over like sidechain bass part. It was just that the whole time. It was just a full song of this weird thing the whole time.
Well, it barely had any time to be anything else.
Yeah, yeah. So it's almost more like a feeling than it is like a song.
Yeah.
You know?
Like that felt like another kind of like an intro track. Like that could have been the first track on the album, and it dropped into something after that and became, and this is one of those things, I'm starting to wonder if this is like a track to track to track cohesive kind of like thing that we're going to miss out on by doing it individually like this.
I wonder about that too, yeah.
We'll have to see how it goes.
We'll see, because I also think that one of the other things I felt when I first started listening to that was, this feels a little rushed, almost like the songwriting, the production. It just felt like they kind of just threw it together, maybe. Because if you would think that this is a long stretch that she's had now between albums, that she would have spent a very long time crafting these songs. But so far, to me, all three of the songs feel like they were kind of just thrown together in different ways. You know, because like I said, I do think that the last song was definitely the best of the three songs we've heard. But again, it was kind of just a generic pop song to me, it sounded like. But that there was also that cool vocal part in the middle of this song where I was like, hey, that sounds like Poppy. And it was like the first time I felt Poppy in these three songs. Although I guess Church Outfit is pretty Poppy feeling too, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of just like a feeling thing. I don't. It's hard to explain.
I gotcha. No, I agreed with you though. I understand what you mean. I just
kind of how you talk about like when you hear a Metallica riff, it's just that's Metallica. It's hard to explain.
It's one of my favorite things about music. I really love it. Like I love being able to pick out any artist's sort of signature in the thing that they make, be it music or directing or writing and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I don't. And then by virtue of that, where it's like I can tell that this is a Metallica song or a Spielberg movie or something written by Stephen Merchant, and it's like what? But then I want to try to figure out what it is that makes that obvious. Mm-hmm. And that's been significantly more difficult to understand. Like it's just it's this ethereal consistency of what happens after what, and like the vibe, and it's so hard to pinpoint, and it's really fascinating.
I feel like something like that would be a lot easier the more senses your like art can be consumed by, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're watching a movie, you're watching it and you're hearing it. Whereas if you're just listening to music, you're just hearing it, you know? Because I feel like...
Well, sure, but if you watch it and like... But it's like a Spielberg movie, it's like, okay, this looks like Spielberg and sounds like John Williams. And so it's like now you've got two people.
Right, for sure. And I was going to say probably for most directors or any sort of a visual thing, it would be the visual aspect of it that would be their
signature,
the thing that's their signature. So that wouldn't really be relevant. Yeah. Well, it's just funny you said that, because to me, like, when you said that, the first thing I thought of was like an artist, right? Like a painter or something.
Yeah.
And
that's super true. For sure.
I was thinking, to me, that would be like the easiest thing, right? Because some artists just have a particular style of art, and it can be very, like the thing I was thinking of was, like, I have a soft camera too far away for me to go get, but like I have a painting over there that I bought for my cousin, and it looks kind of like half finished, right? So it's like very detailed, but then
I think you showed me that actually.
Right, I had it in the background of one of our videos. Yeah. But for people who didn't see that video or whatever, like it's kind of just like a half finished piece of artwork basically. And I thought, it grabbed my attention right away, because I was like, this is really interesting. It looks unfinished. And then when I looked the artist up online, all of her artwork is like that. Like everything is like half finished. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's like a super easy signature to see, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, something like with music is so much more nebulous.
And it's interesting because it is with art. It's like you got your Picassos, you got your, you're like your Miyazakis and stuff. Like you're going to see consistency in a way that is the most like visually is just going to be super obvious, especially when it comes to making visual art.
Yeah.
Because, and then once you get into like cinematographic art or like movie, film art, it's like, okay, now you're looking for the consistencies with which somebody films something. Like there's a couple of things that Spielberg does that makes it very Spielberg. Like he does a lot of like face reactions to stuff, and he does like a lot of one shots that are kind of longer than usual. But there's also a ton of other things to the stuff that he makes that it's like, I can tell this is him, but I can't tell why. And it just really fascinates me. And that's something I've been trying to, just from the perspective of a sound designer, which is probably the least direct version of that. Like
I would definitely agree.
Artists, for like musical artists, it's like, okay, this is totally a style, but like, can you find a consistent style in somebody's sound design? And that, there's a few people that I know that it's like, okay, yeah, this totally sounds like a Ryan Stunkel or a Juuso Tolinen or something like that. But I don't know. It's a new medium, I guess, to try to apply that idea to. Like, I couldn't tell you what, all of Ben Burtt's sound like him or like Gary Rydstrom or something. And that's I don't really know if that's... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that principle is so hard to apply to that, because oftentimes what you're trying to do is recreate the sound of something that has a specific sound already, right? So it's like, but what you're talking about, I don't know any of those people you just mentioned, but I would assume that they're probably all video game sound designer people.
Well, Ben Burtt is the sound designer for Star Wars, and Gary Rydstrom did like Jurassic Park and everything else that was
right. So all of those things have fantastical elements to them that you just mentioned, right? Like the sound of a lightsaber or the sound of the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I will say though, at the same time, every sound that you hear in anything, movies, games, nothing sounds like it does in real life. It's
right.
always going to be,
Yeah.
you know, embellished on. And so I feel like
Yeah.
the embellishments, there's going to be a consistency.
I was gonna get to that point eventually, but yes.
Oh, sure. Okay, sorry.
100%. No, I was just gonna say, like, that's the cool thing about video game stuff is because, like the almost sometimes the restrictions of the medium, like if you're making an 8-bit game and you can only use 8-bit sounds, that's a crazy restriction that would force you to push your creativity, right? And the same could be said for any like box you have to be put into in terms of what you have available to you and all those different things. But anyway, we're here to talk about Poppy.
Right.
But that it was all topical because, like I said, that one line made me think of Poppy. So, all right. So this is a longer song, 3.5 minutes, almost 3:40. So this is coming from the weird song we just heard that had lots of crazy weird distortions, some very pretty piano, and then some sidechain compressed crazy bass. And you said, and I agreed, that it almost felt like another intro. So I'm really curious to see what comes after that.
Yeah.
So this is What It Becomes in 3, 2, 1.
Totally different. Love it.
Color me shocked and surprised.
Electric cello?
It's probably not a real cello.
Right. The hard cuts make it sound like MIDI, probably.
Vocal pitch shifting.
Ooh, that tape effect. Love that.
The cavernous reverb.
This is so cool. More Melanie Martinez in this,
Synth
actually.
strings. Let's go. I'm turning this one up.
Same.
This is trip hop. Dude, that shaky, rattly snare drum. I mean, it's not a snare drum, but I love it.
It's like a box of dice or something.
Something.
I love it. It's like a broken vibra-slap.
Yeah, it's almost something like that, for sure. My screen is so narrow, I have to... Right? Every 8 bars, we've had the background get bigger and thicker and louder.
Boom. Oh, I love it when they do this.
That's a little lights dead action to me. Ooh. That could be a real cello.
I wouldn't be surprised. It seems easy enough to make it happen. Oh, there's some good stuff happening here.
I still feel like the lack of higher frequencies is containing all of this in sort of like a bubble.
Yeah.
But man, this is the best song on the album by a mile, in my opinion.
So far. Fantastic.
That was
That was definitely a production dreamscape.
Yes, I was going to say everything we were just talking about.
Everything that we do here in one song.
That was great. My favorite part of that whole song was that loose, rattly thing. Yeah,
you know that almost, you know what it made me think of was that Dead Brothers song.
Well, any of the Dead Brothers. Oh, they have actually cello players in the Dead Brothers, or one of the guys played cello, so that makes total sense to me.
Well, I was thinking about the one where that starts with like that really heavy stomp that's got like the chains and stuff in it. Mm-hmm. Really the only Dead Brothers song that I've ever enjoyed or listened much to. I was hoping you'd know which one it was, but
they have several songs like that on that album. That album if anyone wants to know what we're talking about, that'd be a perfect album to listen to around Halloween time now, which Halloween will probably be over by the time I get this posted, but it's called The Fifth Symphony, Symphony, The Fifth Symphony by the Dead Brothers, and it is probably about a decade or more old at this point, but it is a phenomenal album from front to back. So crisp and clear. Absolutely amazing. But what it made me think of was like, you hear like, if you had like attached a few coconuts together or something, like in island music or something like that.
Yeah, it's like almost like a wind chime, but heavy and like slow.
Yeah, it made me think of coconuts, or maybe even like dried squash, which I collect and have a whole bunch of here for like shakers and stuff. Mm-hmm. It didn't sound like that necessarily, but some sort of like, I loved it.
That was really great.
The whole song was really great. Yeah.
So many cool, like, listening to that again, you could pick out, you just go through it and listen to it over and over and find different things about it that are super cool. The reversal effects and the big reverbs and just the swells, and it just, what a wonderful.
And the fact that it got so much bigger, and when it started, everything was kind of thin, not necessarily thin feeling, but the low frequencies as they came in and like the strings in the back. Which those were definitely very fake sounding synth strings, which I don't say that in a negative way. I'm just saying that's what those were. But it was really cool to have that in a track with a real cello. Yeah. Or I guess it could have been a bass, but I think it was just a cello playing.
I'm pretty sure it was a cello.
That was really neat. Oftentimes if you're an artist who's going to use a real cello, right? Mm-hmm. You would never be able to use obvious fake sounding synth strings on the same track as a cello because your integrity would not allow you to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you would have to be a specific type of artist, someone who actually is creative and will allow their creativity to do things like that. Like it's so like you would never hear, right, for example, a real grand piano on a track that had obvious fake electric piano on it, right? You would never hear that.
You wouldn't even need it necessarily.
No, not necessarily. In this case, these strings are doing completely different things, but I just find it to be very refreshing to me, and I feel like that was a very very cool creative decision on their part to mix the very obviously fake strings with very realistic sounding strings on the same song. Like I said, I don't feel like a lot of artists would be willing to even entertain that thought.
And that would be a shame, because gatekeeping is only ever just restrictive.
Yeah, for sure, which is all recording studios are. They are the keepers of the gates, and the keepers of gates and keys and grounds here at Hogwarts. And so I will say, though, that song to me, more than any of the three previous songs, really showcased the narrow bandwidth that we're working with frequencies here. This album is a low frequency focused album with not a ton of mids in it either. That's why parts of it are feeling, I think parts of it feel a little boxy to us. Like there's what frequency range would you consider mids to be within? Mids to me are like from 2 to, and that's probably pretty generous, but I would say from like 2 to 250 to
2, like the number 200,
250.
Oh, right.
Sorry,
right.
200 to 250 hertz to, I would say, maybe 1,000 hertz.
Okay, I think that sounds pretty good. I would say. I would agree with that.
Which generally, those are the frequencies you try to avoid being...
300 is poison.
Being built up in your mix. That's generally, like, if you have frequencies being built up, that's kind of bad. However, a lot of, like, male vocals exist within that range. Yeah. Certain things. But obviously... any sort of an instrument is going to have a very wide frequency range, and almost everything that you ever record ever sounds good, better in my opinion, when you just boost all the highs. Within reason, obviously. If you're recording a trumpet, you got to smash the crap out of all of that stuff. But you know, when I'm EQing something, the first thing I do is get rid of basically all frequencies below 80 and boost everything above like 3,000. Just
up to about 10.
Yeah, I just have like a shelf, and then a down till, well, I don't even care about that, because at that point you don't hear anything really, from in music wise at least.
Right.
You know, and then so everything I do has basically that on it, within reason. Sometimes you want to, you know, do different things for whatever reasons, and then when you're talking about mixing a song, generally you want to have things existing within those ranges. And then what you do to make things feel bigger or smaller is, or more contained is, you get rid of the high frequencies to make something feel less like it stands out in the mix less. So, but however, the problem is with something like this, when you have nothing that has any high frequencies like that in it at all, then you can't do those effects, right? Like Chris Schoenberg always talks about how in the verses of songs, you should have your guitars, when he's talking about metal music or any heavy music, but generally a very typical thing to do when you're mixing heavy music is, in the verses, you have the guitars low passed, not very low, but a little bit more than you would during the chorus, right? So the chorus kicks in and you move that low pass up. I guess for you it would be on this side. You move that low pass up just a little bit, and you're adding those high frequencies to the guitars. It makes them stand out a little bit more, makes the chorus feel bigger. But this feels like they mixed the songs, and then in mastering, they just got rid of all those high frequencies, and everything was kind of smushed into this frequency ball. If that makes sense. And that's how every song on this album has sounded. Like everything is smushed into this frequency ball that exists within these certain ranges. And if you think about the absolute highest highs over here and the lowest lows over here, you want to ideally, if you're going to do that, have the ball in the middle as much as possible. But I feel like with this album, the ball is shifted over this way. So you're getting lows and mids.
Low mids, yeah.
And you're not necessarily accentuating anything that's above that. And that's the problem that we have on so many albums that I've reacted to here on my channel. And when I do reactions to albums like that, sometimes like that Scar Symmetry album from earlier this year is just the absolute worst thing in the world, Chris. Because I took that album and I loaded all the songs into Vegas and I did a boost above like 4K to the whole thing. And I rebounced all the songs and I put it onto a CD, and Chris, it sounds good now. But it didn't sound good. But I needed to do that in order for it to sound passable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That should not be how the album sounds or was put out into the world as the final professional product that you're purchasing. You know what I mean?
I want to know.
That's the issue.
I want to know why these things happen.
I don't know.
Actually, I want to find out from someone.
We've talked about this so much on the channel.
And all we can do is speculate everything that we do. I mean, there's just no answers.
Do you agree with me that this album sounds like that, or am I just being crazy and too picky?
I would say that it does, but I would also say that it does not necessarily include anything that would fill that space if it wasn't cut out. Like there's there's no cymbals here. There's nothing jingly. There's nothing that has a lot of that spike in it.
I guess that's true, and that's definitely a thought. I will say that T-Bone Burnett was very famous for coming up with a new formula for compressing MP3s that he thought was better. And I don't think it ever really went anywhere. But if you do listen to some of his albums that are like that, and you compare the MP3s to the WAV files from the CD, which I actually did once for a project at the studio, I got the CD files and I downloaded the professional WAV files that came on the card with the CD. And the fun thing was, like, in listening to it, I literally could not tell a difference. Now, normally when you're talking about 320 kilobit MP3s, you really can't tell a difference between that and FLAC or WAV files that are 1,141, kilobits per second instead of the 320. But one of the things that he said was he just started mixing all of his albums with no high end in them, because that is what gets smashed and starts to sound MP3ified when you compress things down to MP3 quality.
When you get that artifacty, almost underwater sense, that is true that it's all in the
high
highs.
frequencies, right? Because with metal music, you can really tell that a lot because of the crunchiness of the guitars and the like sizzliness of the cymbals. So I do wonder if part of it is that, like, where they're just mastering it so that mastering it for like digital distribution or whatever, and there's just some unspoken rule, or maybe even a spoken rule I don't know about, where mastering engineers are all just like, okay, we got to cut everything from 7K up because that doesn't translate to Spotify or whatever.
Interesting.
So, I don't know. But that's all hearsay, and I want us to get through this album in a timely manner, which we're already not doing. So,
right.
So that was a really great song, though I agree it's the best song on the album. Now we're going to a 222, the most magical song on this album because it's the only one with that time length. All right, this is Flicker in 3, 2, 1. Love it right away.
Ooh, I love that. Great, great.
This is pretty lights.
Yes, it is.
I mean lights, not pretty lights.
Right. Which is different.
Very different, yes.
Ooh.
See, that low, the sub frequencies are being handled really nicely here.
It's so low. Oh. Out of the way.
Oh, that synth.
It is such a good synth. Simple, like a single one oscillator.
Dude, everything about this so far is amazing.
This is really doing stuff.
There's definitely some modern Depeche Mode in here as well.
Huh.
Ooh, flipped. The drum beat was in reverse there when she said that. Mm-hmm.
We still have a minute left in a very short song, and already so much has happened. Fantastic.
That sound is sidechain compressed to the kick, but in a good way, I think.
That synth, that little synthy thing that goes up and down, it's very Röyksopp. Very Röyksopp.
It's very cool patch, synth patch.
I love it.
I don't want this to end.
No.
But it just did.
Yep. And not only does it end, it ends very soon.
So that
222.
So that song, she did the chorus twice. So that to me is definitely all you had to do was add a bridge and then third chorus, and you would have had, like, in my opinion, one of the best poppy songs that she's ever released.
That was so good.
Yeah. But she fallen victim to the two-part song, which is just a very prevalent thing where an artist just writes a verse and a chorus, and you just do each part once, and then the song is over.
I've been having a lot of thought about this lately because of how many new albums are coming in real short. And I was listening to the most recent Ashnikko album, which is probably in my top 5 so far.
Okay. Her last album was in your top.
I've been waiting for this album for a long time.
That's awesome.
And the production of it is outrageous. It's immaculate.
Awesome.
It's so good. The songs are painfully short. But I listen to them and I'm like, a lot of times I don't necessarily find myself wanting a lot, and I'm wondering if there's a certain efficiency in the songwriting where it's like you're still hitting all of the beats of the structure of a song for the most part, but you're just getting them done more quickly. Like if you start the song on the chorus, for example, and then you just I don't know. I've been thinking about it. I haven't really come to a conclusion on it, but it's an interesting thought about song efficiency. And it's like, could we get to a point where the structure just lends itself to 2.5 minutes in a way that doesn't really feel like anything's missing?
Well, you definitely can, and I can prove that because when we just listened to that Rob Zombie album, right? And you and Chris were both very surprised that I was not upset with the length with the lengths of the songs being too short. However, one of the things that I realized about his music and certain other music as well, I think the legendary Shack Shakers is the first band that I realized this with. But if you write songs that don't meander at all, I think that it is perfectly acceptable for you to have a full song that's less than 3 minutes, but you can still have an 8-bar bridge and go to the chorus and then just end it. And the songs can be short, but they can still feel fulfilled, in my opinion.
Sure, I see.
Those Rob Zombie songs, I feel like if you analyzed some of those Rob Zombie songs we were listening to that Chris Schoenberg felt short to him, I think you would find that the verses are half the length of the average verse of the average song. So what you're doing there is you're actually cutting out, if you think about every song being verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, bridge, chorus, right? That's 6 parts, right? So if you're thinking about having 2 of the 6 parts be cut in half, then what you can do is you can have a double length chorus the last time, and you're not losing any time. You're actually still down a half of a section. This is all very, nebulous.
Right.
But if you think about it mathematically like that, and then the idea that some pop songs especially don't have a bridge, right? So they just do verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, and then basically just repeat the chorus again. To me, that can still feel like a full song, But with Rob Zombie, I do feel like because some of the verses are like half-length verses, and the chorus itself might be a half-length chorus, you can have these songs that almost feel like they were smushed into a smaller time frame, but all of the pieces are there, and to me, that still leaves me satisfied when I'm done listening to the song.
Yeah.
As opposed to a song that's twice that length on a Power Man 5000 album that's not one of their good albums, that's just a twice the length verse, and then a twice the length chorus, and then a twice the length verse, and then a twice the length chorus, and the song is over. That just makes me frustrated because I feel like you skipped one very important step of the song, And we've talked about this so much on my channel, people are probably bored. But if you're new here, this is the kind of stuff we talk about. So do you agree with some of that? Or
Yeah, I think that's all makes really good sense. And it's something that I will start to apply when I think about these things, like just mathematical structuring of what I'm hearing. And it's like, how come this sounds all right and it's only 2.5 minutes? Like what's not there, what's shorter, that kind of thing. Yeah,
I think when you think about it, by the way, I put a cough drop in, so
that's fine.
I'll try to talk with it on. Well, I'll try to not make too big of a deal about it. But
I might not click it against your teeth.
Yeah, if you hear it clicking, I apologize about that. But if you try to think about it more like that, I feel like it makes me less angry when it comes to the length of songs.
Yeah, totally.
But also, like I said, the first band I ever started thinking about this with was the legendary Shack Shakers, and I think that they literally just play their songs at twice the speed of the average song. So, like, literally, they can play a full-length song, but it's half the length because it's done so
twice as fast. Yeah.
Or even if you played something a third faster, that still means it's over a third sooner. And if you have a 3.5 minute song, cutting a third off of that, you would be under 3 minutes. You know what I mean?
I watched a really interesting video about this sort of recently about if a song can ever beat too fast and what that does and how that happens. And it breaks down like the different types, like the different areas of your brain that are receptive to different elements of songwriting. And it's really, really interesting. I'll send it to you.
That is interesting because I bet the psychology of it would be some metal bands would make music that's intentionally too fast to mess with your brain or whatever.
Potentially. This was more like a tempo thing. Like if you take a song that's recorded at like 140 and you speed it up to like 380 or whatever, it's like this is still a song. And it's like, not really.
It's funny.
It's really interesting. I'll send it to you. We could put it in the description too.
Yeah. It's really funny you say that too because when I edit our videos now, I told you that a couple months ago,
you do it.
Discovered the L key will make it go like I think it's like an eighth fast or something.
Yeah.
A certain percentage faster, and then I can hit the button again, and it goes a little faster, and then I hit the button again, and I think at that point it's 12. It's double speed. Mm-hmm. So when I edit our videos, I hear the Rob Zombie songs, for example, or Lulu, that speed. And boy, it is funny to listen to a lot of music way faster like that.
Yeah.
And then when I'm editing and I get to a point where we're talking, you know, because there's large sections of the songs where we're not saying anything, so I'll just like fast through those, or I'll just click to when I see us talking again. But then when you listen to it at normal speed, you're like, how can this song be so slow?
Yeah.
It completely messes with your psyche. Like completely.
That's what happens when I listen to audiobooks. I will usually listen to them at like 1.25. And just to the point where it's faster, but it doesn't sound ridiculous. And then you put it down to normal speed and you're like, who poisoned this person? Like,
or I could imagine if you do that a lot and then you go talk to a person and you're like, get to your point faster.
I know what you're going to say. Give me the rest of the words. Like,
that's so funny. All right. Track 6, ones and zeros. Oh, this is a 316. Austin 316, the second most magical number. Austin 316 says, I just kicked your ass, right?
Very good.
Whereas John 316 means I just saved your ass.
Amazing.
Like from the devil and stuff.
Right.
Happy Halloween. All right.
Happy Halloween. Here's Jesus.
Poppy ones and zeros. Poppy ones and zeros in 3, 2, 1. I like this right away. It's less dark feeling immediately.
Very lights.
It's getting darker. See, now those drums sound like they have more high frequencies in them. Mm-hmm. This is so lights. Her melody.
Big time. Even the sound of her voice.
Yeah. Yep.
The at the end of those with the verb is the lightsiest thing of all time.
Yep.
I love how much she does stutter effects. This almost sounds like a postal service song.
I'm totally unfamiliar with them. I have one of their really older albums.
They only have one album.
With that, it's Yellow? Oh, I'm thinking Snow Patrol. Sorry.
Oh.
Totally different band. This is so lights, it's disgusting. Just in case you're watching and you don't know, when we say lights, we mean the Canadian pop artist who is one of our collective favorite artists of all time. Just go look up Lights on Spotify or whatever. You'll find her. Mm-hmm. She's phenomenal. So this is the third time we've heard the chorus, I think.
Bridge. People in Planes.
Yeah, the drum editing for sure.
I miss them so much.
I think that was a synth and not a guitar, but it could be a guitar. No. I don't know.
I bet that's a real guitar.
Oh, I like this. Like a little bamboo-y sound.
Yeah, it sounds like when you you flip your bow over and you plunk it and you hit it against the strings.
Yep, there's a word for that, and I know what it is, but I can't remember it.
Me neither.
I love that as well.
Yep, that was great.
It was so lights, though. It's almost like...
There have been, man, I don't know. There's a lot of artists in this vein, in this style, that are just, they're all sort of converging on the sound of lights. And it's like, I only say lights as the singularity of it all because she's the one I'm the most familiar with and the one I heard doing these things more. Like, I sort of first, I don't think that I would say that she is big enough to be considered influential to the point of having all these other artists draw themselves into her style.
I agree.
But it's like they're all running to, a lot of times.
I would be shocked if you told me that Poppy didn't know who Lights was.
There's no way.
I would be shocked.
She absolutely know each other.
I would be shocked.
But yeah, I mean, that's great. I will say, as one of the longer songs on the album, I have sort of gotten a bit of an expectation that it's going to use that space to go a lot of places. And it didn't really go anywhere beyond where it started.
I think... Sorry, go ahead.
And that's approaching a disappointment, but just in that respect, because otherwise I think it's a really catchy song, and I think it's a really enjoyable song. I was just like, oh, this is it, huh? You know?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think any of the songs on the album have really deviated that much. After the first minute of the song, you've pretty much heard everything that you're going to hear throughout the song. The previous one that built really nicely, that was nice, but it was mainly just like building a synth pad in the background, and you did still hear the elements from the chorus. I will say, the reason that song was longer was because they took the time at the end to do that little like 30-second instrumental part, you know? I would rather have that be there and have the song be a little longer rather than not be there and be shorter. But I do think we got to hear the chorus 3 times there, if my counting was correct. So, yeah, I enjoyed that song a lot. I thought it was really great. I will say that it sounded like eerily, uncannily like Lights. Yeah, like I said, but it's I love Lights so much that that's not a negative to me, but it is somewhat suspect, I feel. Because like you said, Lights is not this humongous artist. You know, to us she's so important, but I don't know, maybe there's some I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I guess suspect in the sense that, like, is this a formula that is considered the popular formula for this type of music, and production companies are doing what they do to, like, you know, we need to make sure that we remake that thing again because we've seen how much money that thing makes for us and other people, and we're going to keep doing it until it starts to be oversaturated, and then we twist something else out and find a way to keep making money.
That's not what I meant at all. That's an interesting point, and I agree with that. However, what I meant was, and you even said it when we were listening, Poppy in that song was singing, to me, stylistically, like Lights normally sings. Yeah. And unlike Poppy. How Poppy normally sings. And that, to me, is where the, like, suspect thing comes in. Like
you think she's copying her?
Almost, yes. And, you know, that makes me think of Olivia Rodrigo on her first album, where after she wrote 2 songs, one was inspired by Taylor Swift and one was inspired by Paramore. And she was sued by both people and then forced to add credits to the album and everything because they sounded so similar to those artists. And to me, this feels like that.
That is an interesting point where it's like when different artists start doing things vocally that sound like each other. Like there's a couple of parts
it doesn't even have to be vocally, but I feel like that's the most easy thing to stylistically take from a person who's like a pop artist because it's basically just their vocals. So, well,
because especially like, you know, if you don't do that all the time, then it becomes a conscious decision.
That's exactly what my point is. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just,
Sorry, that's what I mean. Sorry, Hogar, stupid delay. That's what I mean when I said suspect. And that was a lot of things to throw into that one word that could have potentially had a lot of meaning.
Yeah.
But that was what I was thinking, was like, that almost felt too similar to Lights, to the point where I feel like you could almost have like a legal situation because of the deviation that Poppy made from her normal style of singing to sound exactly like something. But like you've already pointed out, maybe Lights might not be the like center of that. It might be someone else or some bigger.
Yeah, or it could just, it could just be, a trend in the music style where Lights is doing it for the same reason everyone else is. And we're just the most familiar with it because of her.
Exactly. So that's why it's all interesting. But I liked it, and I liked I said right away at the beginning of that song, I felt that there was a little bit more higher frequencies in the drums there.
That was probably, I think that might have been the best sounding song on the album.
I agree. I absolutely agree, and I think the reason for that is because there was a little bit more high frequency there.
It gave it more space.
Yeah, absolutely. And then actually, I feel like the drum beat did get a little bit more contained as the song went on. Like there were more elements added, and so they brought that down. But that was just really well done. That's what you should do in that case. When you're trying to add elements to a song, you have to sacrifice other things, especially if they're in the same frequency range.
Yeah.
All right, now we're on to the title track. So this is Zig. Less than 2.5 minutes, so we'll see what she's going to give us. You ready?
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1. Big beat.
This is Poppy.
Exactly. I was just going to say the same thing.
Interesting melody. Love that.
Wow.
Cool.
Very dissonant.
Ooh. Yeah. Yes. Let's go.
Please scream, Poppy. Would you sing or sing? I mean, not like that. Please don't do that.
Love the guitar adding now that it's in the song.
Yeah, and it's not doing like anything really heavy. It's just basically doing what the synth is doing, but... And they're doing the same like choppy effect to it that they're doing on everything else too, which is really cool and always unsettling because a guitar, you could never naturally do that with it.
Right.
Weezer. I got my hash pipe.
Love the pitch change. Awesome.
That's such a catchy chorus.
Interesting vocal effect there.
Wow. Okay.
That vocal effect at the end, was that just like a micro pitching, like almost like sense or something?
No, I think what it was it was just a patch that, like a pitch shifter that has like multiple voices on it. And they were just pitch shifting it at like very specific intervals to make it sound like that.
Because it almost could have been a different person.
Well, I almost thought that too. I was like, maybe there was a different person on there, and our file just doesn't say featuring person.
Yeah, it was just like the janitor or something.
Yeah, could have been, totally. That was interesting. Yeah, that guitar riff totally reminded me of the hash pipe guitar. Did you not get that? Like dun 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 dun. But it was detuned lower than that. So it was like
I never,
transposed.
it didn't hit me for that.
And I mean,
funny.
like, don't come at me because like just Paul muting a guitar and going dun 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 is like obviously the most like generic thing ever. But like, I really got hash pipe feelings from that, though I think it was transposed down a couple steps to drop C or whatever the song's in. I don't know. I feel like there were a lot of elements to that song that I really enjoyed, but it didn't reach its full potential.
I agree.
I think that
It's just a little short.
Yeah, and I think that, like, I wish that there would be a drum kit on some of these songs where, like, instead of these, like we barely hear, we've heard, like, no hi-hats really at all. True. And the snares are not these, like, big snare hits. Mm-hmm. So the whole album feels a lot more, like, four-to-the-floor dancey electronic.
Yeah.
And even that song, too. Not the whole album, I should say. But, like, at no point has the album felt like a rock song at all. Nothing. True. And, like, with this kind of a song, like, the chorus was so catchy and stuff, and I really wish that when the guitarist came in, we would have had a little bit of the whole band sound. But that is the best chorus, for sure. When I cool. Zigger zag, zagger zigger zag, like whatever she's saying. Like, that is a catchy chorus. It's very cool. Like, I'll be thinking about that, right? Whereas none of these other songs will probably stick with me when I walk away from us recording this. But that one will probably stick with me, I would say.
Yeah. I think number 4 will for sure.
That was the trip hoppy one?
Yeah. The first one that was like really out there.
Yeah. I mean, I really like that one too, but I don't. So far, there's no chance that this album makes it on my top 12. Like, the next 3 songs would have to be like the 5 greatest songs of the year. Or however many songs we have left. There's just no.
My top 12, like, my whole list of potential entrants right now is like 16. So there's a good chance this will be in there somewhere.
Yeah. But like we discussed before this video started, there's 4 albums coming out just today that I think could have potential to be on my list.
That's true.
I thought Poppy maybe in this moment, which I feel is going to also disappoint me, but then also Duran Duran's new album and Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. Mm-hmm. Those 4 albums all came out today. So, all right, should we move on, or do you have anything else you wanted to say about that? You didn't really say anything about that song, so.
No, I thought it was great. The production on this from an electronic standpoint, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's okay. Big and full and heavy, and vocals are right where they belong, and it's just doing a lot of neat stuff.
You talked a lot.
I was just laughing at the fact that I gave one song a number rating and immediately abandoned doing that.
Well, you even pointed out, you're like, it's for the first time ever. Yeah,
first and only. But and that does not mean I'm about to start. I just thought that was funny.
When we were doing the Rob Zombie reaction, you were mentioning the stereo image and the width of the stereo image a lot. Do you feel like this album is very wide? I
think that it can be. It doesn't always do stuff that's really wide, but the widest, every song on this has a point, at least, where it's wider than anything on that Rob Zombie album.
So that's so crazy to me when you were saying that. I was like, man, I just don't feel like that. I feel like that Rob Zombie album, one of the things I like about it is the production a lot, and I feel like it is a very wide, very thick, heavy album.
Yeah, but it just doesn't spread way out in the stereo image at all. It was very tunnel.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get that, but maybe I haven't listened to it with that mindset yet. So.
Sure.
All right. Now we're on to Linger, a song that does appear to want to linger a little bit because it's 316 again. Second most magical number.
Hot damn.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Linger in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
It's the Unforgiven.
Let's go. Is she going to mix synths with acoustic guitar here?
You better.
Something that does not happen very often at all. A lot of auto-tune on her voice. Very lights. That was a lights. This sounds like something right off of her Ice album or whatever that first album was called. The Listening.
Like, these guitars are almost entirely hard left, hard right.
Oh, yeah. It's just double tracked, panned forward, left, hard right. I feel like she's doing the Lights vocal thing again.
Cool.
I mean, if you told me this is a Lights song, I would believe you, and I would be disappointed in it. But I would believe you. I would believe you.
I like this a lot.
That's cool. Somebody really liked Lights' album Dead.
Wasn't you?
It was not me. I guarantee that. I never even released that
Oh wow!
reaction.
I didn't realize that.
Because I uploaded it and it got canceled. It got copyright,
Oh,
and I never did the whole process of changing it. I should go back and do
I
that
see.
though.
I love the little like fluttery up and downs happening in that vocal
In the
part
vocal
there.
line.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because of it's double tracked and it's like, timing set offset, but it's
Yeah.
cool.
This is very different for Poppy,
Yeah.
which is cool. I don't care for it that much, but it's cool. This kind of just screams like "Throw Me on the Radio." Imagine Dragons could do this song.
So Imagine Dragons would do this song?
Any generic pop group. Ba da 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 da. Like,
I don't know. I would really struggle to insult this with something as ridiculous as Imagine Dragons.
I don't know.
I really don't like Imagine Dragons at all.
So one thing I have to say there that I do think is interesting. I have only normal. How do I want to start this? Normally, when you have an artist that does not generally use acoustic guitar, right? Normally, especially if you're an electronic artist or a big rock group or whatever, but mostly we're talking pop artists here. If you have a pop artist or an electronic artist, essentially the same thing nowadays, who is going to have an acoustic song, which this was not necessarily an acoustic song, but clearly started out as an acoustic song. Generally, the rule with there would be tone down things like autotune and things that are less human, things that make you less human, that humanize you, or things that make you less human feeling, I guess, because what you want to go along with the feeling of the guitars is intimate. You want to feel realistic. You want to connect with the feeling of the acoustic guitars, which is a very gentle sound and a very intimate sound, right? The only other artist that I have ever heard that was totally fine using acoustic guitar sounds and then overly obvious autotune is Lights. Her first album is all like this song.
Yeah.
Plus way better production. And
Way better production?
oh yeah,
Way better.
Way better.
No.
Yeah.
Not true.
But I just don't care for this giant low pass cavernous sound. Like this is just not for me, which is totally fine. But yeah. Maybe I shouldn't say better production, just better instrumentation.
That's fair.
But anyway, I do think that we've been talking about Lights more than Poppy here. And I do feel like I said, that she's the only other artist that I know of, that I can think of, where she totally just will play very intimate sounding acoustic guitar and then have gobs of autotune all over her vocals. We know that Poppy and Lights can both sing perfectly, so it's definitely a stylistic choice. But those are the only two artists that I know of that do that. And so now here we come again to another moment where it's like, okay. I think Poppy really likes Lights a lot. And maybe we're totally wrong and she doesn't even know she is, but
Well, I don't like.
seems to be a theme here.
Here's the thing about that, though. An artist that already has their own established way of doing things, doesn't have any interest in making music that sounds like somebody else, because that's not going to benefit them in any way. If they've already got their, like, Poppy has a style and she has a fan base, and it's not a small fan base, and her style is awesome. Like, she's doing a lot of mixing things up. You know, this album is nothing like Flux, is nothing like I Disagree, for sure. Right. So I just don't think that she's going to suddenly sacrifice the idea of making something that she wants to make for the sake of sounding like somebody that isn't her. And I feel like this is just traveling like as her. I think one of the reasons that we're talking about this and talking about Lights more than Poppy is because Poppy doesn't make music like this. We can only compare it to the only closest thing that we have to this, and that's Lights.
That's a good point.
And so, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if the next thing that she does doesn't travel this road at all.
Right.
But they are still white women making pop music with electronic elements, so that's like they're not going to be like wildly different from each other anyway.
Right. And there's one other really important thing too. Like, I am aware that Poppy did release a pop album before she released I Disagree.
Yeah,
so,
was it just one? I feel like she had two, didn't she?
She may have had maybe two, but she had at least one full-length album that was mostly pop music, and then I think it mixed in some like guitar-y metal stuff towards the second half of it. I've never heard that, so maybe her pop music does sound a little bit more like this. But again,
I thought you were a fan of her music before I Disagree. I thought you liked it.
I don't really know that much about it at all. At all.
Wow. Okay.
It was only in the last like year and a half or so when I was going to have Chris Schoenberg do a whole reaction to Poppy. I was going to play like a bunch of different things for her that I actually went and researched and looked up a bunch of her old stuff.
Her stuff before I Disagree is great, and you can feel some of the thread of Poppy as she moves through different genres and stuff. Like, you hear something from before and you're like, oh, I can see how this would become, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Poppy before I Disagree for quite a while. However, I never listened to the music. So
then what were you a fan of?
Her YouTube videos in general, the like creepy short videos, and her character and her being on different things, like being in character. Like, it's fun to watch her do interviews and things.
Interesting.
In character, because she never broke character ever. Like, she was literally just a robot.
Because that is an element of Poppy that I do not know anything about. Like, once I got on board with who she was with like I Disagree, you know, that was my first introduction. And to a lesser extent, the music that happened before that, when it was clear that she was going to start doing heavier stuff, and that's what made us excited for that album in the first place.
Right.
And then I just went back and listened to all of her previous music. I never investigated her YouTube stuff at all.
Yeah, well, and that's the reason she was able to make those albums, was because her YouTube channel got so big and stuff. So unless, I think it was always her plan to maybe make music, but like her videos when she's like so much younger looking than she is now, like when she was like 16 or whatever, she started her channel long time ago. All her videos are just like these very short things, and it's like it's very cool. But that's how I got to know her, just kind of like cool. Accidentally. Yeah, and then when she released her metal song, we were like, "What?" And then she was part of NXT, which is how I knew her the most from that.
And that whole thing, whatever the hell that was, confused me to the point where I didn't even listen to it.
Yeah, well, and that was just when she kind of started to break character, I think, for the first time.
I see.
And now I don't know if she even has a character really anymore. But
fair, yeah, maybe she's breaking away from having a character in general.
Yeah, which would be awesome. I don't. All right, now we're getting to the second longest track on this album. The Attic, which is really cool.
I bet this one's going to be weird.
Weird? Okay.
Yeah, like big with a lot of space and just like do a lot more of what happened and what it becomes, I think.
I want it to be creepy. When I think of an attic, I usually think of creepiness. So
I agree. And it's the second longest song, so it has room to do that.
Yeah. Yep. All right. In 3, 2, 1. Oh, wow. Totally. Wow.
And it's not creepy.
I am not going to mention Lights anymore, no matter how much I want to. Little break beat in there. Let's go.
Yeah. This is much more Melanie Martinez than Lights anyway. We should schedule a time for you to listen to her, because it's at this point, it just is necessary.
Well, and I need to listen to her album from this year to determine whether or not it's going to be on my list, you know? I know you like her first album a lot more, but at this point, I'm running out of time. I like this secondary vocal part here.
Yeah.
Flitting back and forth. That's really cool. Ooh, that's cool too. Wow.
Yeah, just that little quick swell off to the sides. That's cool.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yep.
Nice long tail out there on the piano. It's very nice. Totally not what we were expecting at all.
Not at all.
But that's kind of the theme of everything here so far.
I don't know. I feel like I don't have a ton of anything to say about that song. It was good.
Mm-hmm. I liked the drum and bass part when it came in.
Yeah.
But then I almost felt like it didn't necessarily fit with the chorus of the song as much. You know, it was definitely more, again, like the whole rest of the song. Like the thing that you were supposed to emphasize and that we're supposed to like care about the most in the drums is definitely the kick drum. The rest of what we're hearing is definitely very much a muted, toned down sounds, whether it's any cymbals whatsoever or the snare drum at all. You know, the snare drum is not standing out at all. And I think one of the main reasons for that, again, is because this album is definitely tending to lean more towards the low to mid-range frequencies in terms of the arrangements. And you can't have a snappy snare drum in there. That interferes with that way of approaching the song writing and recording. So the drums, the whole album, have definitely focused pretty much solely on the kick drum rather than the whole drum kit, if you will, as a whole. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I think there were elements in there that I enjoyed, but overall, I will say I think that song had really cool elements, but it never really reached its potential.
I think I agree with that on that one too. I don't know what it would need to do, but I don't know. Maybe we're putting our expectations too high, because that was a perfectly fine song.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
and it just, you know, they can't all reinvent.
No, for sure. And I think, like I said in the last song, like I think stylistically they're just kind of doing things that are not necessarily meant for me, with the more like just the big low frequencies. You know, just I much rather have more. I don't know. It's a tough thing to explain.
Yeah.
I feel like we've listened to other things that are like that have disappointed me in the same way that this is disappointing me. You know? And I think it's just the way some pop music is nowadays. Mm-hmm. So that's totally fine. It's just not for me. And I can still appreciate it, but at the end of the day, necessarily say that it's not necessarily for me.
I have not ever so far told my sister to listen to Poppy. And I have thought several times in this album, now I will.
Okay, cool. I would be curious, having someone start their Poppy journey here, that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, to see
I did send her like Concrete and stuff when I Disagree came out, because I was just like, listen to what's happening here. This is really something. And, you know, half of the songs she liked and the other half she did not.
Yeah.
So it's necessary to, don't need to tell you which one's which.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that this is moving Poppy into definitely more of a something for everyone kind of pop space, which is, I mean, there's plenty of stuff in that space that we love, but I feel like Poppy still has a little bit of an outlier presence in that world because of how indifferent and, you know, unapproachably interesting her music has been for most people.
Right, like when you go to a Poppy show now after this album's come out, what is she gonna do?
Right.
Like, is she gonna have like a metal set and then have a pop set?
Right. How in the world, like, what in the world is the demographic of the crowd at a Poppy show after this album?
Right.
If it's like this album, songs from this and songs from I Disagree, like everybody's just gonna split up. One side of the room will be happy and the other side won't.
But remember, at the time, that was the most important thing about I Disagree to us. Remember, I just loved the idea that she was bringing in all of these, probably realistically, these young women who probably never listened to metal before.
100%.
Were experiencing it for the first time through her. So like,
which I'm always a fan of.
Yeah, and so well, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens. And like you said, the moment you said it, it didn't ever occur to me, but like, there's going to be a Zag to this Zig later.
I hope so. That would be big. That would be amazing.
You couldn't name an album otherwise she would have just named it Zig Zag, right?
Right.
So this is Zig, and then later we'll have Zag. There's got to be a Zag. And Zag is going to be just bonkers.
I hope so. That would be incredible.
And so
that would really be something.
Yeah, and so that makes me way more excited for that. But if again, we're just projecting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so if that is the case, then I think that puts this album into way more of context that's understandable to me.
Yeah, and so it's like with Zig, you know, if Zag is a different thing and it comes out and it zags, then Zig would suddenly be like, you know, the disappointment, whatever I might have for it, which I wouldn't say I do necessarily, but if I had any, it was like, okay, I can totally dig that because Zag came out and totally changed the perspective of what happens in this album.
And I could see that happening. I really could. I hope that happens, for me at least.
Yeah.
Because I definitely have not been feeling this album as much.
Sure.
All right, the penultimate song. Motorbike. In 3, 2, 1.
I was like, oh, here comes a Beach Boys cover, but nope.
Mm. 100% different production.
What?
100% different production.
Yep. This is awesome.
This is a different person made this music. 100%.
I think I have heard this.
It's really going to disappoint me when this song ends just after the second time they do that.
It's coming.
all too fast. Because this is by far the best sounding thing we've heard. By miles. Yep. Got a big snare drum, huge claps, hi-hats, real drum kit.
There's even like a tambourine type of shake in there.
This doesn't feel like a poppy song to me, though. Ooh, this is cool.
It is enormous.
Yeah, yes. Please do the chorus one more time. I don't know how much time we got left.
I think they'll come back to it.
That guitar. I think it's a guitar.
Excellent.
That blew my socks off. That came from a whole different stratosphere. That to me is professional, and everything we've heard up to this point is amateur. In terms of the way it sounds.
I wouldn't call it amateur, but you could.
It's a step above amateur.
Yeah, it's like different, echelons of professionalism. Where it's like this is like when you talk about the best in the business, and everything else for that is like people who make.
To me, like Poppy made all the other songs on the album, and this one was like a guy came to him and was like, "Hey, I have this song. You should do it." Okay. Yeah. This is that. This is.
Or the opposite.
Oh, well, could be that too. I don't think so. Yeah. But, and I don't mean that necessarily. Like, I don't think Poppy makes very much of her music at all. Certainly she did not make any of her metal music. That was the guys around her. Her boyfriend or husband or whatever. I don't know. And then the guys in the band. And so I'm assuming the same people kind of made this, but like that just sounded so different. This is the case of pop music, like someone else made that song. And like that was like, put that on the radio right now next to anything and it would fit perfectly. I mean, that is like song of the summer type deal. Like that was the best song on the album.
That song was awesome. Phenomenal.
And it went all the way through the chorus and there was a bridge and the chorus again. I don't know how it did that in less than 2:30, but
it got it done.
Magically, it fit inside those parameters.
Yep.
And that actually makes me think of that Ellie Goulding album that came out earlier this year, which I surprisingly keep going back to and just enjoying more and more every time I listen to it. So spoiler alert, I think that's going to be on my list. But
I think it'll be on your list, yeah. Do you know what's number one yet?
Absolutely.
Is there any like clear front runner?
Absolutely. Yes, Be Born Beaton with the Darkness Comes Again. Without question. Like, exploded but just like last year, if you listen to that album, I don't think you would even like it. But for me,
sure.
And then I think right so far number 2 is, well, whatever. We keep some of it for secret. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure.
I want us to try to do our top 12 a little bit differently this year so we can get through it in a little bit more manageable of time and then actually separate it into 2 videos where we show each other songs and then where we just kind of talk quickly about each one to kind of like unveil it to each other and to the world like we normally would do, but try to do it in a little bit more of a timely fashion and then have a little bit more of a lengthy video where we listen to one song from each of the albums. And then that'll be a nightmare and a half to try to get through, but we'll have to maybe just mute parts of that video. So we'll have to just see. But anyway, but yeah, if you want to check out Be Born Beaton, they're a German electronic band, just like all the things that I love that you don't care for necessarily. But man, there's some really good stuff there.
Unnecessarily low vocals.
Oh yeah. Maybe that won't be my number 1, but to me, that's been my number 1 so far all year. Cool. We got a lot of good albums still coming out. So,
this song was huge.
If every song on this album was up to that quality, in my opinion, this album would be like phenomenal.
That's true.
That is literally what I have wanted the album to sound like the entire time. Now, I say that knowing full well that a lot of the songs were not arranged in such a way that their mixes couldn't necessarily be like that.
Right.
Like I've been saying the whole time, where's the snare and the rest of the drums other than just the kick? So I think, again, she was just going for something different than what I wanted. But if the whole album sounded, in my opinion, like sonically, audio quality wise, up to that last song we just heard, I would like it a lot more. A lot more. But in order
it'll be interesting to listen to this album, just straight through and
true.
Be able to really compare.
Yeah, that is a good point.
But I do still think that is a standout song in every way.
Yeah,
which is really something for track 10 of 11. Like,
yeah,
that is
often. That's a very poppy thing to hide like a crazy great song at number 10 of an 11 track album.
Yeah.
Now that really makes me curious what 11 is. I mean, is it just going to be? Who knows what it's going to be?
I mean, normally I would see 2:15 at track 11 and think, okay, well, this is just, maybe half a song and then some kind of outro thing. But, there's plenty of songs on here that are just as short that are full songs. So we'll see what happens.
Maybe this is just the one full-ass metal song. Who knows?
That'd be awesome.
Or maybe it'll just be piano and her singing, like a ballad.
Let's see.
All right, this is Prove It in 3, 2, 1. Really interesting distortion on her vocals.
Reminds me of Fun.
Not a single snare drum in any of that. I was specifically listening that time for it. Interesting, though. Love the juxtaposition of the styles here. I love the distortion on her vocals. It's like just enough where it's constantly distorted, but like the frequencies that they're choosing to distort don't bother me.
And you can still totally understand it all.
You can still hear her true voice. Not anymore.
Right.
But I think that's the point of it. Interesting. That was really the only song that I was kind of paying attention to the lyrics on.
Oh, cool.
But I really enjoyed them a lot. I liked what she was saying. I kind of liked what the message was there, which was, she was basically comparing herself to certain types of pieces of art or something. And when you hear her start to say that, at first you're like, okay, she's in an analogous way comparing herself to art, to something being put on display. But then she makes one of the lines is that put her for sale, but for a price that no one could ever pay or something, so it's like self-worth and things like that. But also I'm sure the idea of being put on display, performing and all those different things, not that it has to be super deep meaning or anything, but I liked the lyrics in that song.
Melanie Martinez has a great song about that in her previous album. Yeah.
Speaking of Melanie Martinez, the only other lady that I associate with her for no reason at all is Olivia Rodrigo, because those are the two girls that Chris has been telling me to listen to, and I listen to Olivia Rodrigo and do not care for her at all. But Olivia Rodrigo's new album is called Guts, and in that song, she says, "I'm the blood and guts on the
interesting little
thing."
Just like
so, it's like
red line map of things to connect to each other there.
Yeah. So, how did you feel about that song?
There was a part right before the last I guess, I don't know, I would say chorus, but just that last repetition of, blah, 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 put on the page, the thing that she put in there all the time. Mm-hmm. But there's a spot right before that in the last third of the song that sounded like it wasn't sure what it was trying to do. It felt a little bit like, here's a bunch of stuff. Oops, we forgot that we muted the track that has the thing that's supposed to also go here.
The main melody or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It just had almost a muddy kind of, a conceptually muddy existence.
Okay.
And it was the only part of the song that felt that way, but I was like,
I mean, it was such a short song that section could have only been 10 seconds at most, right?
Yeah, it wasn't much, but it was just something that stuck out to me.
I didn't notice that at all, but I think that's probably because I was paying attention more to the lyrics, so I was kind of like waiting for her to come back and sing probably at that point.
Sure.
I enjoyed that song as well. That's a perfect example to me of what I was saying, whereas like it's pretty rare to have a song like that where there's literally no snare drum or anything other than a kick drum. But that's a great example of like, yeah, just a kick drum. That the chorus comes in there, or that big part. Like you said, I don't know if it's the chorus, but that big part comes in there, and it's pretty crazy to think about a song having a big part in it with no drum other than a kick drum. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, like a classical music song can get big with, all sorts of whatever. But when you're talking about something going, boof, 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 you usually have the t in there, and it's not just
you need the t. Exactly what I was going to say. You need the t for that.
You need the t in there with the boots, 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 and not just the boo, 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 boo.
And I was going to say, it's interesting because with that being true, I feel like the distortion itself was filling in a lot of the absent highs.
Like I said when we were listening to that, I loved the distortion on her vocals. I loved it throughout the whole song because what they were able to do was keep the actual original tone of her voice, but still distort certain frequencies of it. They basically found the perfect frequencies of her voice to distort. And it's what happened was it made her voice sound distorted and clean at the same time.
The weird little outro thing that happened with the, it was kind of a descending.
That like a digitized sounding thing.
Yeah, that sounded like it was just, I don't even know, some kind of thing with just a bit crusher on it.
Yeah, 100%.
And I wonder how much of that is what they used for her vocals, just like a bit crusher with like a really low, or some, not super, just, found the right combination of like bit depth and like resolution or whatever to make it sound the way that it does.
Yeah. Or like a lot of distortion plugins nowadays allow you to choose how wide the frequency ranges that you want to distort. And
that's cool.
And they allow you to move the frequency that you want to distort.
Like that.
So you can
Is that like a frequency shifter?
It would be shifting the frequency of the distortion, and then you can like take like an EQ band and narrow it or widen it.
Yeah.
And like Depeche
Mode. Do you know of any plugins that do that?
Well, the plugin that I used for distortion is 15 years old at this point, and it's called Amplitude, and it does that. But I'm sure anything made within the last 15 years.
I don't have a ton of distortion plugins. I've got like Isotopes Trash 2 and Camel Crusher and some other stuff, but
I mean the two most famous ones that I know of are like Amplitude and Sansamp. Sansamp is a very famous one, and I bet that would be really cool nowadays with all the modern technology. But also like any Line 6 digital distortion plugins would be amazing because they're the company that makes the physical distortion pedals and things that I have and that Chris Schoenberg uses when he plays shows and when he records all of his modern metal stuff. Cool. A lot of people use Line 6, so any plugins from Line 6. But what I was going to say was, forever I have wanted to try to do distorted vocals where what you do is you take the single track of vocals and you low pass it up to a certain point, and then you distort that track, and then you have that same exact take, that same exact track, you double it, and then you high pass the second track and leave it clean, right?
Interesting.
So you have the high frequency, whatever you have to like match up the low pass and high pass filters
Yeah.
So that one of the tracks is clean and it's the high frequencies, the crispiness, and then you distort the lower frequencies or reverse it. You know, I don't know what the best way to do it would be, but I've always wanted to do vocals like that in a song, and I very rarely write the type of music that would require the vocals to be distorted.
Right.
Or at least it wouldn't work out as good because I don't have as good of, stuff to make it sound like I would want it to. But like, I've always wanted to try to do something like that. But
I've done some vocal distortion for just like spoken, like VO, like, robot effects and stuff.
Yeah.
And I did something kind of similar, but I would take just the dry track and I would leave it sort of centered in like a sandwich kind of way. And then I would duplicate it and then apply vocal effects to, like, one track gets this particular effect and then another one gets this particular effect. And then I would have LFOs that would vary the volume of those two of vocal tracks kind of just like randomly up and down, but leave the center one clean so that it's like, it's in there holding everything together in a way that you can still understand what's being said. And that worked out pretty well. Took some finagling for sure, but it was not so bad.
So in terms of this Poppy album, I will say, to me, overall, I feel disappointed.
Yeah.
I was hoping for a metal album, and so it took me a few songs to kind of get over the fact that we weren't getting that. And that's fine. That's on me, not her. However, I feel like she did the thing that I don't like it when artists do, that I talk about all the time here on my channel. And it wouldn't bother me as much if like half the music that I listen to didn't do this. But I'm talking about the no high frequencies thing. Like, I just don't understand why some artists think that it's okay to do that to their music when so many things that I do listen to that I like the way it sounds have tons of high frequency, and it's all taken care of and nurtured in the mix rather than just cut out. So,
well, and that's the thing of it too, is like, I hear what you're saying and I recognize it in this, and I hear it and I think, okay, this doesn't bother me. But then you get to a song like Motorbike where it has the full range and it's like, this just feels so much more open, and there's so much more space.
Right.
And it's like, like you finally get a chance to sort of stretch and just really hear how much depth there is in all of the music. And so it's like, on the one hand, most people wouldn't notice, and on the other hand,
For sure.
it just feels and sounds better with the high frequencies.
Yeah.
And even, like I said before, there's so much in the composition where it's like they didn't even put high frequencies in the song. So where can they, who knows how many they even had to cut out if they don't exist in the first place.
Right.
But
I kind of feel like
there's
that's,
gotta be.
I personally kind of feel like that's a bit of a cop-out, though, because I do feel like even if you're not putting the high frequencies in there, there are high frequencies in the song.
Well, and that's what I was going to say,
know.
because there's but that does not necessarily, because every sound, like, it's pretty difficult to find any sound at all of any kind that naturally doesn't have a thing happening over 5K.
Right.
Or whatever,
Right.
And then so it's like, no matter what, this is still going to be something where after the fact,
If nothing
you
else, the air.
synthetically took them out.
Like
yeah.
the air, the space
The
that
air
you're.
itself.
Now the thing is, synthetic sounds can be dialed in, to not have that. So, and I understand, and I get too, like, what they're doing, like, and like you made a good point, and it was something I probably hadn't thought about before, but like I think it's just sort of like a genre of music now to do this. It's what I said I wasn't going to bring her up anymore, but it's what Lights did with Dead. I feel like that album was so terrible. And for some different reasons, but that album was the same thing as this. There was no high frequencies whatsoever. And the point of every song was to basically just sound like a woofer. Just sound woo, 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 woo. Like, that's what people want to listen to, is that. And
Is it?
I guess. That's what I think.
That's the thing. That's the problem that I keep having with this, is like, I cannot fathom why this keeps happening, because it happens to bands that have nothing to do with this kind of music.
Right.
And
Metal bands. And
Yeah.
Right.
And so the Diablo Swing Orchestra.
God,
Is that who it was?
Yeah, that was a whole different. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's like, this is happening all over music. And I'm not in the music industry. And I just would love if anybody could tell me, I don't want any speculation. We've got enough of that here. We have speculation at home. I want to hear someone who's in the industry tell me what is happening. Why is this happening? Is it an appeal to the hardware that people are using to listen to music more often than not at this point? Is it an appeal to some other thing I don't understand?
No,
there's got to be a reason for it, because we're talking about people who can make anything happen. Music production is in its most realistic form, pure magic. These people can make anything happen. Yeah. So why is this consistently happening?
Yep. And it's just, we've talked about it ad nauseum. The second I hear one song that's mixed like that, you just know the whole album's going to be like that. The Heavy this year was the worst offender of it. Just absolutely the worst. And I tried after the fact, sorry about the phone ringing. I tried after the fact to boost the highs on that album so I could actually listen to it. There's literally none in the mix.
They're missing, yeah.
With the Scar Symmetry stuff, I just went in and EQ'd the highs up a ton, and it sounded like a regular mix to me then. I can listen to it on speakers, headphones, whatever. It sounds comparable to their previous albums. Whereas the Heavy, there's just none to be found. It's egregiously bad. And so, I don't know, but we don't need to harp on it. I think stylistically also this album's not necessarily for me. And I want to make sure that people know who might be watching this for the first time. First of all, thank you for sticking with us through the whole album. But I do like pop music. I like lots of pop music.
Of course.
And
plenty of it.
Yeah, and so it's not just the fact that this isn't screaming metal that it doesn't appeal to me. It definitely is a stylistic thing that she's choosing to do with these songs that is kind of what turns me off of some of it.
I think it's probably I Disagree was just so good. It came out of left field. It was something that she did a thing that I've never heard anywhere else from somebody like her. She really reinvented some stuff with how good that album is. And as much as I do enjoy this version of Poppy, this is stuff I have no problem with any of these songs. I will happily listen to this. It feels almost, and I say this recognizing that music is not something that is supposed to satisfy fans. It's something that is made by artists for themselves, and if people happen to like it, then everybody wins. It feels almost like a wasted effort just because of how good and how interesting I Disagree was. And I don't know, it's like when Aerosmith made Honkin' with Bobo. Nobody wants to hear Aerosmith do a blues album. But, like I said, if Aerosmith wants to try making a blues album, who's to say? Who am I to tell them that they can't do that?
Right. To me, the other thing that's a factor into this equation is Flux. Because to me, the most impressive thing she's ever done is Flux. Because of how different it was from I Disagree, but also how well they executed their completely different vision. Whereas this is also a completely different vision that, in my opinion, was executed half-heartedly, it feels like.
I see. So I can see why you would feel that way.
So I personally would definitely listen to Flux every time before I would listen to this.
This is, as an album, with my new and improved numbering system in place.
When you only give a number to one song. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That one song was a 7.5, and I think this album overall feels maybe a 6.5.
Okay.
It is not without merit, for sure. But it is, for the most part, and music. It is just some album.
Now, let me ask you this. I was curious, and I thought you were going to say, but maybe you're trying to skirt the issue. Would you rather listen to this or Flux?
I think, based on the way that you talk about Flux, I do feel like I really slept on that album. It could stand to give it another shot, because at this point, I barely remember a single note of music from that album, and that would lead me to say this one. But I need to give Flux more time. Okay.
All right, well, we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here with us. Like I said, we've got all sorts of other very positive videos about Poppy here on my channel, top 12s. I did my reaction to Flux, which I think is a really, really good reaction. And I think, if I remember correctly, unfortunately, I had to take the audio out of it. So I'm pretty sure we'll have to take the audio out of this one too. So, which means nobody's going to watch this, but we'll see.
Bummer.
I'll try to get it out next week so that it's out right away, and people who are interested in Poppy will see it pop up in the algorithms, if we can. But thank you very much for watching, and stick around, check out other things on the channel, especially the Halloween video, and we're going to listen to In This Moment right now. So stick around and check that out if that sounds interesting to you. Thank you very much. We will see you next time.